So, lots and lots of news today, but not a lot of news about Tesla. But let's see what we do have here. We've got Tesla Chan. He says, breaking, FST 12.4.2 has been distributed to the Tesla internal staff. He will track it down for further information. So maybe we're only 1 or 2 days away from a wider release to you and me. We'll see what happens. We are up against a couple of pretty interesting days for Tesla stock. We have the numbers coming out on Tuesday. We have whatever impact there might be for the overall stock market with regard to all of the things that are happening with regard to the Biden campaign. Anyway, that news could break at any moment. I did, by the way, hear O'Reilly said he has inside information that Biden is stepping down, but I found absolutely no other news anywhere else confirming that. So he's the only one that seems to have that inside information. So take that for what it's worth. As we noted yesterday and this morning, AJ and Gary Black and some of the others are all coming in with their numbers. And those numbers are looking improving because of better sales of Tesla in both China and in Europe. Saw some, very good numbers coming out of Europe compared to what's been happening recently. In any case, we're not sure where it's going to come out. And the question really right now is whether people are going to be buying or selling Tesla over the next day or two based on those numbers on Tuesday, or whether they've already started looking past Tuesday to RoboCab or Cybercab, Robotaxi, Optimus, and all the rest, all the AI opportunities in the future. We also heard this morning that Tesla is now offering a tactical gray interior for the Cybertruck. And I'm wondering, does that sound like something you'd prefer? I know that my wife is saying she loves the all white we're planning to wrap ours in the black matte look. And she likes that white as the contrast. So I don't think she'll be going for tactical gray. I'm curious what you think. So I'm talking to my brother today, and we were talking about Tesla for a while, and he drives a hybrid, a traditional hybrid, and he was wondering, he says, well, what about the plug-in hybrids? Aren't they really a good option? Wouldn't they be something that we'd be looking forward to having a major part of the business going forward? And I just said, well, there is going to be a Tesla that's, going to be a pretty solid vehicle, a little smaller than my Model Y, that's going to be coming out in about 6 months. That'll be under $30,000. And that was the end of the conversation. So there's a one-off. He's been driving various kinds of Priuses and things over the last few years. And so he gets it, and he's a Tesla investor. But usually there would have been more back and forth, but that was the end of the conversation. Take it for what it's worth. In case you haven't figured it out, I'm Randy Kirk. It's really nice to meet you. If we haven't met before, love to have you subscribe. Follow me on X. That's my big push right now. But subscribing here will be great too. Hitting the like button is always wonderful. We're back in the regular cycle this week. We got Brian White tomorrow and Larry tomorrow night. So what could be better? That's what's coming up. All right. And then, of course, Patreon would be not the best thing you could do. The best thing you could do is watch me every single day and keep the thing on past 5 or 6 minutes so that gives me the algorithm time to say, oh, they must really like this show. All right. This is from FactSet. With the end of the second quarter approaching, earnings expectations for the S&P 500 for the second quarter are slightly below estimates at the start of the quarter. Thus, analysts continue to expect that the index will report its highest year-over-year earnings growth rate in more than 2 years for the second quarter, but it's less than what they were thinking it was going to be earlier. If it turns out to be the 8.8%, the actual growth rate for the quarter, that would mark the highest year-over-year earnings since quarter one of 2022, which was 9.4, and it would also mark the 4th consecutive quarter of year-over-year earnings growth for the index. So this would bode well for the S&P, for the Dow, probably, definitely for the NASDAQ. Earnings growth for the second quarter is expected to be broad across the index, as 8 of the 11 sectors are projected to report year-over-year growth. 4 of those 8 sectors are predicted to report double-digit growth. Communications, services, healthcare, and information technology, and energy are all expected double-digit. On the other hand, 3 sectors are predicted to report a year-over-year decline, led by the materials sector. If 4.6 is the actual revenue growth for the quarter, it will mark the 15th consecutive quarter of revenue growth for the index. Looking ahead, analysts expect year-over-year earnings growth rates of 8.2 and 17.6 for quarter 3 and fourth quarter, respectively. 17.6. For calendar year 2024, analysts are calling for year-over-year earnings growth of 11.3, and for calendar year 2025 are expecting 14.4 for 2025. Okay, during the upcoming week, 8 S&P 500 companies, including one Dow 30 component, are scheduled to report results for the second quarter. Yeah, we get a few scattering reports this week. The banks then come on strong in the second week. All right, what is going to happen this week is that on Monday, we are going to have 3 reports in the morning. When I come on, we will have the S&P final U.S. manufacturing PMI. That is expected. They don't have an expectation on that one. I always hate it when they do that, when they don't make a guess. Come on, guys, you guess on all the rest. Can't you guess on that one? Anyway, last month it was 51.7. Manufacturing has been kind of slightly trending up a teeny bit, so maybe we'll have a surprise to the upside there. Construction spending, which was down 0.1% last month, they're expecting construction spending to be up 0.2%. Nothing I'm seeing would suggest that's going to be true. I'm calling that one wrong. That's wrong. It will be down. ISM manufacturing, there's last month 48.7. They're saying that will poke its nose up a little bit at 49.2. That goes along with what I was saying earlier about manufacturing. Seems to be what we're hearing from different areas in terms of manufacturing. Maybe there's a slight improvement going on. On Tuesday, Jerome Powell will be speaking in Portugal. So I'm not sure how that will impact the markets, but it's always gonna, when he speaks, typically it does impact the market, at least a little bit. Then we'll also get job openings on Tuesday. There's a big one that the Fed watches. 8.1 was last month. They're thinking it'll go down to 7.9. Remember, at one point, it was like 12 or 13 million job openings. So it is definitely going down. We're going to talk more about that in a minute. And then auto sales, of course, coming in on Tuesday, including Tesla. Some of the other auto companies will be reporting on Tuesday as well. A lot of the Chinese companies especially, but we might see some of the domestic and Europeans. All right, then on Wednesday, we have New York Fed President John Williams speaking in Portugal. What's happening in Portugal? There must be some kind of a conference. Okay, and then we get ADP employment. Last month, that was 152,000. They're expecting it to go up to 170,000. Then initial jobless claims, which last month was 233, which is a pretty big number of new jobless claims. And they're thinking that'll go up to 235. So we're starting to see maybe a range a little bit higher than the kind of 220s that it's been in for quite a long time. The U.S. trade deficit number will come out that month. That number last month was 74.6 billion. They're thinking that goes up to 76 billion. Yeah, I have no clue on that one. And then we get the S&P final U.S. services PMI. So services PMI, which has been pretty strong at 55.1 last month. They're not making a guess on that one. I'm thinking services PI might edge down just a bit. Then we get factory orders, which was up 0.7 last month. They're saying it's only going to be up 0.3. I'm going to agree with that one. ISM services also coming out that morning last month was 53.8. See, it's edging down. I'm thinking services will edge down. Nothing big, just edging down. Then we get the minutes of the Fed's June meeting at 2 o'clock Eastern time in the afternoon. That will have plenty of time to have an impact, although it rarely does, but sometimes it does, because sometimes they'll give a couple of clues in there that we don't know yet. Of course, Thursday's 4th of July, I will be giving you at least 1 or 2 reports on Thursday. As always, at least 1 in the morning, 1 at night, maybe 1 in the middle. We'll see what happens. Thursday night, in fact, Brian Wong will be joining me because Brad Ferguson is not able to do it that night. Then we've got another New York Fed guy on Friday even before, early. He'll be in India speaking very early. John Williams will. And then what do we get? Well, we get the employment numbers. This is always huge. So what's going to happen with employment numbers? Well, we got last month was 272. The expectation right now is 195. But remember what's been really, really important. And I don't know why this system that I look at doesn't do this. Speculating on what that 272 might be moved down to. The revision of that 272, the revision of the previous month, revisions have become the thing that we're looking at. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. The U.S. unemployment rate, by the way, I have no 195. That could be that's probably a decent range of the number to be in, but I would expect the 272 number to drop. The U.S. unemployment rate, they're saying it'll hold at 4% after being at 4% last month. Maybe that's a questionable one there. Could drop. We could see that dribbling up again to 4.1. You've got hourly wages coming down according to this. Last month, 0.4%. They're saying to 0.3%. That will still be too high for the Fed. They want it down into the 2.5 range, or 2 would be better, but 2.5 is the max the Fed wants to see. And will hourly wages, there's been some other evidence of wages softening a bit, so maybe that will soften a little bit. And then year over year, last month it was 4.1. They're saying it's going to drop to 4.0. Again, way too high for the Fed. If this is the report, if it turns out to be this good or better than this, or even a little bit worse than this, it's just one more nail in the coffin of no Fed interest rate drops this year, which of course, I believe they will not be dropping the yield anytime soon. Okay, the 𝐒𝐿𝐴𝐶 letter is reporting. This is extremely interesting. Hedge funds have been selling U.S. tech stocks at the fastest pace in at least 7 years this month. This is according to Goldman Sachs. Semiconductor stocks have been the most heavily sold, followed by software and internet stocks. This comes after the NASDAQ 100 has rallied 18% year to date and 40% since October of 2023. At the same time, the semiconductor index, the SOX, has skyrocketed by 30% in the recent few months and 70% since October. As a result, SOX relative to the S&P 500 has exceeded the dot-com bubble levels. Don't know any comparisons. Dot-com makes absolutely no sense. Okay, so he asked the question: are hedge funds getting bearish on tech? And I would say no. What they're getting bearish on is how far tech has gone. I think they think tech is wonderful. You've heard me repeat it. I'm going to repeat it and repeat it. I think we're going to see probably a 10% pullback that'll be led by tech, and then we will be off to the races and be up 5% from where we are now by the end of the year. All right, I've said that way too many times. Let's go ahead and take a look. I'm going to just take a look at one thing real quick. Yes, Sawyer Merritt confirming that 12.4.2 is rolling out to employees. And just really quick, see if there's a no. Okay, let's go ahead and look at the bonds. The bonds are up 5.3 basis points in the pre-market to 4.396. The 2-year is only up 2.3 basis points. And guess what? That brings it back down to that 35 basis points difference. So the inversion is shrinking, and that inversion is now back to the smallest amount. Right around 35 has been the smallest amount it's been recently. On the 2-month, it is only up 2 basis points, and that is now down to 5.4, which is almost exactly 100 basis points. It had been as low as 75 basis points, but recently it's been up like 120 basis points. So the inversion shrinking again, but not back to as low as it was. So interesting here to see it shrinking now, but also the 10-year going up. It's at 4.396, almost, well, darn near 4.4. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at oil. Oil is up. It is up 28 cents in both Texas Intermediate and Brent, 81.82 and 85.26. Back down to, boy, that's only $3.50 difference. Am I seeing that right? Yeah, $3.50. So apparently Hezbollah and Israel have done a peace treaty. So we'll see. I mean, really, that's really amazing. It's dropped. It was $5 last time we looked, and now down to $3.50. All right, natural gas down a bit, 0.73%. The pre-market to 2.582. We have gold down a bit, $3.90 to 2,335. What's my number? 2,333 is the midpoint. So just barely above that midpoint. Silver now down 0.69%, under $30 again. We've got copper down 0.13 at 4.385. So almost getting close to $1 under that $5.10, $5.20 range where it was just about a month ago. We've got Bitcoin rebounding solidly here, back up 2,468 to 63,397. Still way at the bottom end of the recent range, but off of those lows under 60,000. We have got the dollar modestly weaker, with both the Japanese and the European, the euro and the Japanese yen both up. And then the equities, here we go. We've got the Dow up 47, or 0.12%, S&P up 13, or 0.24%, the NASDAQ up the most, up 56, or 0.28%, but all kind of in the same trend line. So looking for maybe a good start to the morning tomorrow morning for our equities. Of course, that could change very rapidly. So many things that are kind of unsettling the markets right now. All right, that is the news for you today. I just want to remind you to stay tuned for fast action stuff tomorrow morning. You want to be absolutely certain to come in for After the Bell in the morning, and then Brian White later in the day, where he'll give his final number for Tuesday, and we'll pick up every one of the other numbers that we can find for that show with Brian, so that we can talk about that and contemplate what might happen on Tuesday. And then Larry Goldberg for the evening, the Good News Monday show. We'll hope that we're well over 200 by the time we have that show. All right, it's been great talking to you.